It's a pleasure being with all of you with this very impressive forum of women and men committed to women equality in the MENA region. So I want to thank you very warmly on behalf of the OECD, the organizers of the MENA Week, counting on the OECD for this important discussion and providing us with this opportunity to deliver a keynote speech on the MENA Women Entrepreneurship Forum. Let me tell you that the OECD has been working in the MENA region for around 20 years. And when we started to address gender issues and women equality, it was in a ministerial conference that took place in Marrakesh in 2009, some time ago already. And the priority that was agreed between the MENA and the OECD countries in that moment was starting precisely by women, the promotion of women entrepreneurs. Because we thought already at that moment that it was really a very core for very fundamental issues for the economic development of the region. One, promoting private sector competitiveness, economies that being more able to create jobs through private sector and with the promotion on entrepreneurship. And for that, counting on women as a motor of entrepreneurship was fundamental for this enhanced competitiveness of the region. But in addition, of course, women entrepreneurship has a tremendous potential to enhance the economic and social position on women in societies. So this is why we are convinced that supporting women willing to be entrepreneurs and women-led business is important to achieve the sustainable development of our countries, but in particular the MENA economies. As we all know, the region suffers the largest gender entrepreneurial gap in the world. In 2019, only 23% of small, medium, and large business were owned by women in the MENA region, compared to 32% globally. So there is around 10 points of difference that are very telling about the potential. So what can we do for that? How can we promote women entrepreneurship and building private sectors that are core for the economic growth of the region, but that also fundamentally composed by women? Well, in the OECD, our work is improving the public policies and working with governments, with private sector, with society, with unions to improve the quality of the public policies. And this is what we are trying to do also in this area. So what can governments do to make entrepreneurship more attractive to women and help women-led firms to having better opportunities for business development, moving something very important from just survival to growth, because at the end, companies need to grow in order to create more job opportunities. Well, there is a number of things, and governments are committed to that, but more efforts are needed and better partnerships to make sure that these efforts achieve good results. We know some of the solutions: simplifying business registration and formalization, developing mentoring, coaching, networks of women entrepreneurs. So it's so important that this type of initiatives take place, but not only in single events, but during the day. Every day, women entrepreneurs can benefit very much for belonging to networks that can advise, coach, and help. Improving access to financial resources. This is fundamental. I remember when we started to work on women entrepreneurship, we conducted many years ago with the Union of Arab Banks a survey on how the banks from the Arab region were looking into women, and the results were very, very shocking. In many cases, just being a woman was considered as a particular risk when a bank was considering giving or not a loan. After this, there has been major improvements. Now, many private banks have dedicated programs, etc., but still a lot has to be done. There is one particular aspect that is, in our view, critical, and we have been working on that in recent years. And this is fighting legal inequalities and discriminatory provisions that are still present in legal frameworks from many countries. Of course, with a very high level of heterogeneity, so we cannot generalize because many countries have done important efforts to fight legal discrimination, but still, in general, important discriminations remain. And we believe that as long as discriminatory legislation remains in place on issues such as important as the economic regime of the family, marriage, divorce, family decision-making, inheritance and property rights, in some cases, freedom of movement, this is obviously difficult to close the entrepreneurial gender gap. Something very key also for the OECD when we are talking about improving the policies is building the evidence base and having better data, reliable gender data that can help policymakers to prioritize their actions and monitor progress and being accountable, but also providing data is fundamental for the private sector, for the civil society, for the advocates of improving the conditions. We are working at different levels. We are working regionally in our Women Economic Empowerment Forum, and many of you have participated in their activities. We are also working very closely with several governments of the region. In this moment, we are implementing the Morocco OECD country program, and we are launching in a couple of months the Egypt OECD country program. And in both, gender is mainstream and is one of the critical factors, I would say, of approximation of these two countries to OECD standards, but also putting women economic empowerment at the center of economic reforms. It's important also to note, of course, when we are talking about policies, that policies is not only about what governments do, it's not only about legislation, it's much more than that. It entails a very wide range of factors and actors, and in our view is fundamental to advocate for a model of economic policy and public policy in general that is based on multi-stakeholder approaches. And obviously, when we are talking about economic reform, when we are talking about private sector development, when we are talking about promoting entrepreneurship, public-private dialogue and social dialogue are fundamental. So business women associations have a very important role, I would say, in different dimensions. First of all, to build this network of support, of helping each other, of disseminating information, of enhancing the capacities. And it's fundamental that the civil society has the liberty of action to promote all this with autonomy. But what is also very important is that the business women associations have a capacity of advocacy, and they have the right channels to discuss with governments and to advocate for the necessary reforms. This is a process that requires capacities on both sides. Governments need to learn to engage in dialogue with society and incorporate input in a manner that is rigorous and is has the right conditions to have dialogue only with individual voices or with particularly, I would say, influential firms or people, but really building the systematic institutional platforms to make sure also that the voices of the people that are in remote areas, for example, or firms that are in the informality, totally or partially, are also part of the picture of this process of dialogue to improve the quality of the policy. So we always encourage civil society, business associations to have a very inclusive mindset. This is not only about the people that have regularly the capacity to engage in dialogue, to travel, to interact in a global economy, but we need to make an important effort to incorporate informal business, rural areas, etc., in this type of dialogue. In our approach, we are incorporating this in a very systematic manner. For example, we are implementing with the European Union regional program on promoting investment in the Mediterranean to facilitate that Mediterranean countries receive more foreign direct investment, but also that the conditions for the domestic investment are better. And we are doing this with a very big focus on this public-private dialogue, putting governments and private sector together, and of course with a very important gender orientation. I would like to make a last and short reference to a new area that will be critical in the next years, which is the new digital economy. And we welcome how the countries of the region are putting this at the center of their strategies. And we believe that the ongoing digital transformation opens a wide range of entrepreneurial opportunities for women, for many regions. And it will, if it is tackled in the right manner, it can facilitate the realization of new entrepreneurial projects. There are new possibilities operating from home, making possible an easier compromise between paid work and family responsibilities, etc. We know, for example, that digital business are usually less capital intensive and labor intensive than traditional industries. So there is a lower cost that can, for example, compensate these difficulties, traditional difficulties of access to capital. Yesterday, and probably some of you participated in the activity, we had an important discussion on of our Women Economic Empowerment Forum on this link between the digital economy and women entrepreneurship. Very soon the results will be online, and we think this is also a very important area for the future. So let me conclude by saying that we are talking about something that is fundamental for the economic future of the region. The MENA countries have made impressive improvements in the last years in the educational level achieved by women. So we are much closer to equality on education, but this is not translated into the participation of women in the economy. So this is a gap that has tremendous cost for the competitiveness of the region, a region that requires much stronger private sector and more dynamic enterprises able to deliver jobs domestically, but also to be better connected with the global economy. And women entrepreneurship, we believe, will be a fundamental factor to introduce these new dynamics so necessary. So thank you very much to the organizers for inviting us.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I know that yesterday it was a very interesting points that rise in the meeting, and I know that it's very interesting for you, and always, and I agree completely that we need data, gender data that is always, we don't know where, and legislation. We need legislation who could support us in all our tasks. Thank you very much. And we will continue with, because as you were the keynote speakers, and thank you for your contributions, we will start for the first panel in our session. Now, I would like to give you only a welcome remarks. Thank you very much for being in our 13th MEDA Women Entrepreneurs Forum. As you know, due to the pandemic crisis, it was not easy mobility, especially from different MEDA countries. And this year, our forum is in a virtual way. Next year, 2022, we will celebrate our 20th AFAEMME anniversary and the 40th ASCAME anniversary, and hoping to see you in person in November in Barcelona. We have a translation, as you can see, in English, French, and for the first time in Spanish. I think it's good news for some of our speakers in some panel. And thank you very much for the interpreters. I would like to tell you that now in the register that we can see in the next line, we have more than 700 people connected. I think it's a great success, and we are very happy that we can continue in this way, increasing the participants in our MEDA Women Entrepreneurs Forum. For only clarifying the situation, now I will introduce our panelists in this panel. Later on, we will have a panel session that will be chaired with Mrs. Elisa Trayero. She is our international coordinator, and she will give some questions for our speakers who are presidents of AFAEMME from many years. And thank you very much. Let me say thank you very much to Lina, Jomna, Rim, Emin, and Lujovica. Thank you very much for your support. And the third panel will be moderated by Mrs. Ana Dorangriquia. She is in charge of all the gender policies. She's the director on project and social issues. And the panel will be focused especially in financial issues. That is something that is very worrying for entrepreneurship, especially for women. Thank you, Anna, for the last panel. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Ambassador Jean-Paul Grech. He is Deputy General Secretary for Social and Civil Affairs. He has been started his position the 1st of September. Very happy to have you with us, and congratulations for this new position. And sure that you can help us to coordinate and to improve our businesses from the institution that you represent, the Union for Mediterranean. I think it's very important that, as it was Mr. Carlos Conde and now Mr. Ambassador Jean-Paul Grech, engaging men in women and social economic affairs is our best success. Thank you. Please, Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Elena. I can only echo your wishes that this organization will always be backing all initiatives that this August gathering will be taking in terms of women empowerment. It is indeed a privilege for me to address the MEDA Women Entrepreneurs Week. Gender equality for us refers primarily to human rights. It also makes perfect economic sense and remains a non-negotiable entry point for a sustainable Euro-Mediterranean region. There is no denying that in the policy, social, economic, and environmental areas, relevant progress has been achieved in the last few years. Despite all this, the region is still far from the full gender equality objective, even at the EU level, as confirmed by the latest EU score for gender equality, which is 68 out of 100. Not to mention the big variations in scores amongst countries. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic, like several other crises, whether geopolitical, financial, or environmental before it, has not been gender neutral. On the contrary, it has exacerbated some regional structural challenges. There has been a significant lack of policies contributing to gender-balanced economic and social progress in the region. That said, there is now ample evidence showing that without a deliberately gender-sensitive response, the COVID-19 economic and social recovery will not gain the necessary speed and scale for the countries in the MEDA region. Nonetheless, the post-COVID scenario could present an opportunity for the gender equality goal. Distinguished guests and panelists, according to a recent UN Women report on the MEDA region, the stimulus spending on economic and employment activity is expected to translate in approximately 15 million jobs, out of which only 18% are likely to be held by women. The same report stresses that only 6% of the spending on the employment and economic pillar finances responses take gender into account. This means that women bear twice their share of job loss and receive less than their share of job protection. When moving from access to labor market onto the business system, unfortunately, the picture is not rosier. Although investing in women empowerment makes perfect economic sense, the MENA region still remains below the global percentage of 6.2% of women entrepreneurs who own an established business. The region also accounts for the lowest rates of women who are new entrepreneurs. Women entrepreneurs in the MEDA region face a wide set of challenges ranging from limited or poor infrastructure to gender norms and expectations that produce obstacles not faced by male counterparts. These include access to finance, time constraints related to unpaid work burdens, legal barriers, a lack of networks and role models, and the lack of gender-sensitive business development support. While addressing barriers faced by women entrepreneurs will in the long term require comprehensive legal, social, and structural reforms, increasing women access and use of ICT can help overcome some of the challenges. ICT can be used to facilitate financial transactions, improve the quality and reach of communications and marketing for a low price, and also improve women's access to crucial information and support the manufacturing process. In this challenging context, the UFM, as the only intergovernmental organization covering both sides of the Mediterranean littoral, has a special role to play in advancing the regional gender agenda. Its capability to partner and engage with a range of actors across governments, regional stakeholders, research, civil society, the private sector, and the media makes the Union for the Mediterranean Secretariat a unique and inclusive player. Distinguished guests, the UFM agenda on gender equality and women empowerment recognizes that in order to address the root causes of gender inequality, a transformative agenda must be adopted. This acknowledgement will be backed up by a coordination effort to ensure that the gender lens will be adopted across the UFM member states' sectoral thematic agendas, which mean entrepreneurial, green and blue economy, food system, climate finance, digitalization. To achieve this, the UFM agenda will support member countries in driving impacts on the women leadership and women's economic empowerment, 2 out of the 4 thematic areas so far identified by the 2017 Cairo Declaration. Both these priorities will certainly be on board in the next UFM ministerial declaration, which will be taking place in the last quarter of 2022. The upcoming second regional progress report on women empowerment will also highlight how despite the progress registered in the last 5 years, women entrepreneurship still requires boosted policies, reformed policy frameworks, improved data collection, training programs, and the facilitation of leadership networks with smart gender investments, amongst others. In the short term, beside the organization of the annual Women Business Forum, the Union for the Mediterranean also supports regional projects and initiatives for women entrepreneurship. In particular, I am pleased to announce that UNIDO and the Union for the Mediterranean will be launching this week a joint initiative, the MENA Women Business Club. It is meant to offer hundreds of women-owned and women-led businesses from across the MENA region the opportunity to grow their business, expand their network, and develop new competencies through dedicated mentoring and networking programs. By joining the club, women entrepreneurs benefit from engaging with industry leaders, potential clients, new partners, mentors, more based on their industry and market, with the support of the club's tailored matchmaking service. More information about this will be available on the Union for the Mediterranean website. Meanwhile, the Union for the Mediterranean has recently awarded a new grant to a project targeting 300 women working in rural areas in Tunisia and Morocco, aiming to support their access to new market opportunities, both nationally and online. Women's equal rights and opportunities remain an essential contribution to inclusive development and regional stability. Similarly, gender equality and women empowerment remain at the heart of the Union for the Mediterranean's concerted action in the Mediterranean region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador John Paul Gregg. Thank you for your kind words, and especially you coincide with Mr. Carlos Conde, data collection, smart investments in gender policies. I think these are the key points to go for smart policies. Thank you for this initiative that from UNIDO and UFM, the MENA Business Women Club in the MENA region. And I think it's an opportunity, and as you said, for growth, new opportunities for women entrepreneurs. Thank you very much. I'm sure that from your support and from the UFM, we can improve our gender equality and empowering women in our agendas. Thank you very much. Now, if you allow me, I would like to introduce our next speaker. She is Mrs. Najwa Atia. She is the president of the Capone Chamber of Commerce of Tunisia, and she's the president of the Commission of Women Entrepreneurs from ASCAME. Najwa has a lot of things to tell to us, and I think they have preparing some good initiatives that sure she will share with us. Thank you very much, Najwa, and the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Elena. Bonjour.
Elena.
Bonjour, Elena. Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, everyone. I would have liked to be with you today in Barcelona. It's a pity because I think there's nothing better than meeting in person. I hope that next time we'll have the opportunity to do so. So I will start. I am very pleased to be part of this annual encounter on the thematic of the women entrepreneurship. This meeting here is the fruit of our knowledge sharing and of our alliances in regional and international alliances. I would like to talk about the opportunities that women will have to seize. The economic and social consequences due to the pandemic have demonstrated the need to change our habits and to make drastic changes.
Oui.
Il est vrai que les femmes essaient de créer de plus en plus des entreprises. Mais quelle est l'importance de ces dernières? Est-ce qu'elles ont vraiment une valeur ajoutée?
So do women really have an added value? And we wonder why. It is true that women contribute increasingly to the development of their country and extending their family heritage through education, academic education. However, men and women do not evolve in the same activity sectors. Women work more often in the services sector, in the public sector, or in healthcare, education. However, men tend to work in industrial sectors and technological sectors that are more income generating. So this segregation, horizontal segregation, is also addressed in the training. So if girls who are in school longer, they tend to be more in the literary arts, and the males or boys in the sciences. So we should encourage girls to pursue scientific studies, to have access to more high-paying jobs. And given that education is a driver of growth, it's important to focus on the knowledge and the fostering knowledge. It's important also to focus on innovation in the corporate world, and scientific research and training is also important in university setting. Globalization also is is also impacting, also has a role to play. And so the idea here is to train entrepreneurs to have a sense of leadership, and as such it's important for them to have a sense of initiative and to stimulate the notions of innovation and thirst for knowledge, and students will thus be more encouraged to push forward and innovate. And so the digitalization should also be focused on. And so we noticed during the health crisis how important digitalization was, and this is a great driver for women's empowerment as well. And this also is a great contributor to women's entrepreneurship. For example, using digitalization for e-commerce. It's also important to ensure that women that don't have technological training don't end up being left behind. And it's also important to focus on the financing of women-led businesses, and also to create special funds for the financing of these companies, and by taking some encouraging measures there are some obstacles, such as the lack of guarantees, the misinformation on the possibilities for financing, and the lack of transparency in the selection process for the beneficiaries, and the red tape for financing applications. It's true that it's important. Financial resources are important for business growth, but it's important that networking not to be forgotten. Indeed, a regional and local ecosystem should be implemented, bring together different institutions and chambers of commerce and industry are intermediary actors that guarantee this type of assistance and support for women's entrepreneurial activities to ensure an innovative innovative and sustainable business growth. And this allows women to access different initiatives and programs that could help to progressing women in the entrepreneurial scene. And to this effect, ASCAME is boosting the networking activities and matchmaking between women in order to exchange ideas and experiences, to share best practices, particularly in the field of territorial marketing, digitalization, and access to financing, such as the initiative of the AFAEMME project, which consists in publishing online and innovation platforms. So this project is the European project whose main partners are ASCAME, CCE from the National Agency for Scientific Research in Tunisia, and other institutions from 4 Mediterranean countries, which include Greece, Tunisia, Egypt, and Spain. Its main goal is the development of startups and projects that target innovation and technology transfer in their Mediterranean region. As such, we could develop a Mediterranean ecosystem that facilitates the technological transfer and marketing, and to be able to sell the market these results, the findings of this research. And so this project is currently underway, and I hope that most startups that will join this project will be owned by women. In conclusion, we can say that business growth, the growth of women-led businesses can only happen through networking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Najwa, for all this information that you have shared with us. And I think we are going ahead with this kind of policies. Thank you very much. And now, for finishing this keynote speakers panel, I have the pleasure to introduce my very good friend, Maria-Christine Ogli. We have been working from the last years in several pushing, empowering women issues. I am really very pleased to have you in our MEDA week. As you know, we have been participating in several conferences. I'm happy to be with you here, especially because you have had your AFAEMME World Congress very few days ago in Turkey, that I know it has been a great success. Happy to see you and a pleasure to be with us. Please, Maria-Christine, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you so much for organizing this event. And as you said, we know each other since many, many years, and you participated to some of our events. I participated to your events, and it's always a great pleasure. A lot of our members are also part of AFAEMME, so it's great to work together. And as you know, as we say, alone we are invisible, and together we are invincible. So it's much more better to work together. As you said, also our association have been lucky enough to organize an hybrid event this year in Istanbul, thanks to our Kagider friends. And I saw that Yesim is also participating to the event. What we can say, and also what we discussed during this Congress, it's this global health crisis has put our economies to the test and swept away our certainties, as well as many of our business models. It has also demonstrated the tremendous capacity of our companies, and mainly women companies, to bounce back and be resilient, and the ability developed by entrepreneurs to learn from crisis situation. What has this period teach us? If it has exposed our breaches and mistakes, it has also revealed tremendous solidarity, creativity, and agility. Throughout the world, production lines have adapted in a hurry to manufacture the products needed to manage the crisis. Startups have invented applications to make our daily lives easier or to ensure the smooth running of vaccination campaigns. Companies have reviewed their business models, their sales strategy, their logistic network, and implemented remote work with great ingenuity. Large retailers have created spaces for local merchants to continue their activities, and a lot of women went on this new way of working, new way of trading, like a digital platform and digital website, digital sales. These are essential qualities to help us size the potential for transformation that our companies have today. Because this crisis and its consequences forces us to reinvent ourselves in our posters and as well in our processes, in the management of our resources, as well as in the use of technologies. All this in an environment that is increasingly demanding in terms of ecology and sustainable development. Our association signed an MOU with UNIDO 2 years ago in Peru. It was our last physical event, and to work much more on circular economy and sustainable economy and digitalization. Believing in our collective intelligence, in our inventiveness, in our courage to go beyond our limits is what will allow our world to rise stronger. In short, believing in our entrepreneurial spirit and trusting our companies to create the conditions for everyone's success. Our ecosystem are changing. Let's take advantage of this to dust off the fussy regulations that are ill-suited to the realities and that affect agility. Let's give opportunity to women, which are very often in that trend of sustainability and social regulation and so on. This will be the opportunity to give back to companies the means to grow in a favorable environment, to continue to create the wealth that contributes to the well-being of all. Resilience and sharing are the characteristic of our network of women entrepreneurs. Mutual aid, avoiding inward looking and ensuring that everyone feels encouraged and supported in their initiatives. A company is, above all, a dynamic system that must constantly adapt to the conditions of its environment in order to ensure its durability and efficiency. Resilience, therefore, also, and above all, implies the ability to make sense of events that represent considerable risks for companies sustainability, to better accept them and to foresee solutions to emerge from such turbulence stronger and more resistant than before. It's a matter of reinforcing the adaptive capacities of the company, demonstrating creativity and encouraging innovation at all levels by promoting links between members of the organization. The issue of adaptation will increasingly become a central theme in speeches and practice. Adaptation in the face of digital revolution, adaptation in the face of climatic and environmental constraints, adaptation to meet the new expectations of consumers and employees alike, with the need to implement more inclusive systems that give women their rightful place in a quest for equality, particularly in terms of pay. It is no longer conceivable that a woman with the same work and skills earns 23% less than a man, as the UN recently noted. At the rate of progress recorded so far, it will take 257 years to close this gap. I leave it to judge. In this respect, we must be exemplary and in this field within our own companies. The history of our world, like that of our companies, is a series of adaptations to absorb changes, to find solutions in an uncertain and constantly changing context, to open up to new perspectives, to widen the fields of possibility to be reactive and proactive. Major challenges await us that will have a strong impact on our companies. The answer we find will determine the future of our world. Women must play a full part in this for a more just and harmonious world. For our organization, this must be an opportunity for a new impulse around three key themes: spreading out, reaffirming, projecting. Swarming, by getting more involved in the socio-economic organization of our respective countries in order to influence decisions. By being more present on social network and in the media in order to bring our message to new generation. Reaffirm our commitments, our vision of economic development with a view to sustainable development to accelerate the necessary changes. To project ourselves, to anticipate changes and thus better respond to the expectation of new generation of women entrepreneurs. Our association, FCEM, is part of NetPower Erasmus European project with aim of sharing best practices of each country belonging to the project. We also developed a lot of tools during this period for our members as the FCEM community to develop B2B. It's a business marketplace. We have our own radio. We are doing master classes, mentoring project amongst our members. We set up a tourism directory to help women who suffered a lot, because tourism is the sector who suffered the most with events, with organization of events. We signed an MOU with WBAF, the World Business Angels Forum, to help our women to get access to investment, to business angels. And we've done much more in each country. We are sharing all those information amongst our members, but we are also ready to share it, of course, with AFAEMME members. I would say one motto to finish. It's I listened that this week in Dubai Air Show. It's networking or not working. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria Christine. Thank you for all the explanations and the overview on international level. And I think we can be very proud, as you said, for our contribution as women entrepreneurs in solidarity and creativity in this pandemic period. I think it has been a good achieve. Congratulations for this Erasmus program for young entrepreneurs. I think we have to focus in young women because it's our future. And as you said, at the end, if we don't network, we cannot work. Thank you very much. And for finalizing this panel, I would like to thank you all your support. I'm pleased to have you in this speak note inauguration in the 13th MEDA Women Entrepreneurs Forum. Thank you, Carlos, Ambassador John Paul Craig, Najwa, Maria Christine, and hoping to see you next year.
Okay, so I was saying that we have the Hair Research Program where we are supporting women in research in order to support their innovation and build their startups through SEIE. We have done our own capital share company that we are going to give microcredit loans for female entrepreneurship. Together, we are going to participate in the first microcredit bank in Greece. But all this is with lack of politics willingness. And this is the really important key factor. We are doing our utmost. We are doing the best in a European level. We have publicly advocating for that. And we are sad to see that our ideas, our best practices are being adopted by other countries. And yet the Greek government keep on referring as gender financial empowerment, substituting it to family empowerment. So it seems like we are going backwards.
Great, Lina. Anything to comment from your side, or let's say something closer to you? So one thing is at an organization level, what you are trying to do without the support of your government, but at you yourself or the women close to you, women entrepreneurs and so on from SEGE, are you doing something especially that we can learn about?
As we told you, our projects that are self-financed and financed by crowdfunding mostly, and of course from European funding. We are attracting approximately 1 million euros of European funding every 2 years. So this is really essential. It is that we need to support women in new economy. If we want to have more girls and more young women into entrepreneurship, we have to give them a support to motivate them into giving them access to the new economy. We have different needs, we have different motivations than men entrepreneurship. We have, and that's why we need a different type of support. We want and we believe that everybody, everywhere around Europe and in MENA region, we should have female entrepreneurial hubs based on the specific needs of the women groups that we represent and we want to support. We have different needs, so we need different solutions based and accustomed to our needs.
Thank you, Lina. Very interesting, your point of view. Let's go now to Yomra El-Shidi, President of the Business Women in Egypt. Please, what's going on in Egypt?
Hello, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you. It's actually the same challenges. I agree with Lina. There is quite a lot of talk about SMEs. And as women, we decided as business women of Egypt to take the initiative to help with the civil society, provide more tools to women for their businesses to get out of their comfort zone and innovatively start working with digitalizing in a practical way. Most of the women are comfortable with the way they function right now. Is everyone has her marketplace, has her product, but they were forced. We had to sort of take them step by step without any embarrassment if she doesn't know how to sell online, how to use social media. So we tried to start giving basic tools and help her put her business online and change the module of how she functions. So we did this through the support of Business Women of Egypt. Even we went as far as taking professional photography to the products to do work with the different SMEs to help them grow their business in a different way. So we launched for the first time BWE-Trade. Are you talking? Because I hear your lips. I'm not sure if you're talking. So we helped through professional photography. We helped create a platform. It's called BWE-Trade. And BWE-Trade is the first online all-women based businesses that will be launched all over Egypt. And step by step, we're getting in women from other countries like Saudi, Tunis, Lebanon. So this is the first initiative we did as an innovation to get, even for the first time, for services. 50% of our members are work in the service sector of training, capacity building, or providing, developing consultations. And 80% are producers and and producers of SMEs. So we did the first platform. It's called the www.bwe21trade.com. It's we're launching it with a lot of support from social media. We have a big budget for that. At the same time, we signed a protocol with the USAID for 5 years to launch a new network. It's called the BWX. It's for all women exporters, to help women learn about other markets, how to expand to new markets, and help her find service providers and other packaging suppliers of different things. And this is going to be an international platform to give opportunity for B2B and help women develop their business to the next level. The third thing BWE is doing, we are really focusing very much on how to get them from thriving to surviving. And it's going to be the theme of our next conference in February 26th. It will be getting together more than 20 different countries. It's called Women for Success Initiative, from thriving to surviving, is to exchange best practices and learn about each other's performance in different fields. And it's going to be conducting using the new technologies, what jobs are going to be obsolete, what's the future of SMEs, what's the future, what other products are thriving, and we're giving ideas for women to help them change their module of business and go to a different field so they're not comfortable in one thing. In addition, we're discussing the new technologies like metaverse and a lot of the augmented reality things. So to help them be aware and conscious about all the new technologies, because technology is the name of the game now. So as much as possible, we are working with all the tools that are provided through the civil society, not through governments. Government is not doing much. So it's mainly through civil society to help expand the businesses into new fields and new arenas, to help people find opportunities and just not to give up yet. Thank you.
Yomna,
yes.
Excellent explanation. We are understanding that you are doing that at your organization, at the Business Women of IT organization. What about the local governments, and what about the national government? What interaction are you having together with them from your organization, if there's any?
At least they are blessing our activities. For example, the Minister of International Cooperation attended the signing of protocol with the BWX. They are sponsoring politically our event in February. They are under their auspices. So at least they are just giving a blessing. So they're not blocking our activities somehow, giving some approvals here and there to be able to accept some funds from here and there. We work also with the German government, the BGU, the Businesswomen of Germany, and they help us accept some funds from them to do capacity building of our staff and to expand our capacity as BWE to give these services. So this is what the government does. Because the law sometimes blocks you from taking funds from other countries or something, but they help us by giving us that blessing, thumbs up and things like that. They just attend some of our meetings. So it's better than nothing.
You are right. Better than nothing, always. Thank you very much. Let's go now to Ljubica Kostik-Bukarica, President of Business Women Association in Poslovnia Cena, Montenegro, please. We listen to you.
Thank you, Ljubica is my name. It's difficult to tell. Distinguished hosts, guests, dear colleagues, presidents and secretaries, it's a great pleasure for me to speak on the forum and present our work here in Montenegro. Today is our day, International Day of Women in Business. I wish you happy our day. And we have here also we have problems with the biggest problem is access to finance. And we established small with local governments. 2 years ago, we established small grants for women in business. We have 21 municipalities here in Montenegro. In each municipality gives grants for startups or existing women. These are small grants, about 1,000 to 3,000 euros. And also we have here on the national level, investment development fund. They give loans for women in business under more favorable condition with the low interest rate. This credit line for women in business was created on our initiative or our Business Women Association of Montenegro. Montenegro adopted new strategy for development of women entrepreneurship 2015 to 2021. Previous was 15-20. Now we have a new strategy 2021-2024. And we have 3 strategic priorities, building an environment conducive to the sustainable development of entrepreneurship, ensuring better access to finance and strengthening competitiveness of women's businesses, and advocacy and positioning of women in entrepreneurship. Please let me present one good practice example of cooperation of public-private partnership at 2016 with in cooperation is with municipality of Podgorica. Our association established business counseling for women and young people in the capital. Capital is Podgorica, capital of Montenegro. We established in 2016. Unfortunately, COVID stopped our offline activities, direct face-to-face with our beneficiaries, but we cooperate online now, and during 5 years of over 400 users were supported, and over 13 new businesses started here in Podgorica. Our members, experienced women in business, provide advices to all interested women in the topics of establishing a company, business plans, marketing, promotion, motivation. Work of our members, of course, is voluntary based. This is all that we do now. I think that the government gives us better support. For example, according to statistics from 2011, there were only 9.6% of companies owned by women in Montenegro. Now we have 23% of women business owners here. I think that we all doing good job.
Yes, Ljubica, very interesting your point with public and private cooperation together for counseling and mentoring and so on, and also helping more women to become entrepreneurs. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Next speaker will be Emin Erdem, the president of Women Entrepreneurs Association of Turkey, Kadice. Please, Emin, we are listening to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, distinguished participants. I'm glad to be here with you all as the president of KAGİDER, Women Entrepreneurs Association of Turkey. And I would like to thank you all for bringing us together at the Mediterranean Week of Economic Leaders within the 13th Mediterranean Women Entrepreneurs Forum. MEDA Week Barcelona has reached great success bringing entrepreneurs, representative of the private sector, governmental institutions, business support organization, and many more together in the past years. This year, I believe that the 15th edition of MEDA Week Barcelona will highlight important topics from the Mediterranean entrepreneurial economic perspective with the discussions. Accordingly, I aim to emphasize the importance of the strength of the Mediterranean region, both in economic and social context. Moreover, As the focus on our session is on investing in women entrepreneurship, I would like to provide insights on that topic. Like everywhere in the world, women entrepreneurs in Mediterranean countries face problems while seeking funding and difficulties arising from existing gender stereotypes. And we see that all the obstacles experienced by women entrepreneurs become even worse with the effect of the pandemic. Global parameters show the crisis mostly harm the SMEs, and women tend to own small or businesses, medium businesses. Our recent research measuring the effect of pandemic on women entrepreneurs in Turkey showed us that 55% of the women lost their market share in 2020. Along with this information, a McKinsey study suggests that if no action is taken, COVID-19's hit to women's job could cost the world $1 trillion by 2030. The cost is really high. While the situation is clear, working together is the main driver that will bring success when we work for women's empowerment in multiple contexts. Recent W20 communique, which Kagidar contributes as the founding organization of the W20 in 2015, suggests that developing and promoting inclusive financial solutions in partnership with public, private, and civil society institutions, and including microfinance, credit schemes, and alternative systems of collateral to increase women's access to finance. Apart from a direct financial contribution to economies, women entrepreneurs trigger social growth, which evolves into economic growth. It is well known that women bring leadership skills and values into the workplace while providing incomes for their family. Moreover, being role models for younger generations, women in labor force, and especially women entrepreneurs, create multiplier effects in all aspects in our lives. Women's financial inclusion and entrepreneurship should be taken very seriously in that sense, and all leaders should firmly support women entrepreneurs to enter markets, to create more opportunities, and to enable women to stay in the workforce through various initiatives. The significance of reducing economic and financial constraints and creating more opportunities for access to funding, access to capital for women entrepreneurs, including government support, is very, very clear. And moreover, both governmental and public institutions should be aware that women are more likely to face obstacles in accessing education, information, resources, and networks to pursue their education, jobs, or business, especially during the pandemic. To overcome those obstacles, accessing to financial services is also highly important. Studies demonstrate that improvements to women's equality can create up to 10.5 million new jobs by 2050, of which 70% will be occupied by women. When the public sector and private enterprises, along with NGOs, collaborate for women, the economic growth would follow. As Kagidar, you know, we are the most influential women business association in Turkey, with its 400 members generating around $62 billion annual turnover. And our mission is to develop and support women entrepreneurship, to strengthen women's status both economically and socially through various projects, mentorship, trainings, networking activities, and partnerships. We aim to reach our objective and promote female entrepreneurship. When Kagidar was established in 2002, Elizabeth, women entrepreneurship rate was 4%. Today, it's almost 13%. It's not enough, we know. We know that there's a long way to go, but there is an upward trend in terms of women entrepreneurial activity. Recently, in November, as you know, we hosted the FCM World Congress, 68th World Congress, with around 200 participants from 30 countries. And we realized that women entrepreneurs need to feel supported, be in solidarity, and share their experiences. We believe women's entrepreneurship is a driver for economic growth and sustainability. That's why we keep working for the inclusion of more women in the economy, entrepreneurship, and social life. Kagidar Works is generally focused on Turkish women. However, we all see that women face similar problems in different levels all around the world. That's why our working strategies is models can be applied in everywhere. And we believe in the importance of working together and including women-centric approaches to drive economic recovery. That's why I would like to emphasize that our work is important for women entrepreneurs, for women to achieve their full potential in business. All leaders and all actors in this ecosystem make collaboration to focus on skill development and access to financial sources in various areas for women. The steps can be very supportive in current condition. Thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting us again. I wish you all a good day and hope come together physically next year in Barcelona, I hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, your explanation was full of data, so we have to assimilate all of that very good from McKinsey. And we all know that the Turkish ladies are very, very strong and very fighting a lot, at least in the last 15, 20 years. So we have been following that, and we feel very comfortable with your inputs to our speech.
We do all the best. Thank you.
Now, two last things. First is Rem Daddy, President of Jordan Forum for Business, in our speech, in our panel, because I don't know if she was connected finally or not. If she's not there, she doesn't answer to my question. So I put a question mark here because I've been taking notes from all of you. I would like to, the four of you, make a question. Elena, De Felipe, and myself, we were discussing last week. Something that we found interesting from data also, that the majority of us business women and women entrepreneurs, we are also reinvesting in other women. So there was a percentage. So if it is true that at least in the Western countries, like most of them in Europe and center of Mediterranean, 66% of women, we are reinvesting in other women. So I would like to know if this is the case for your country, or what is your feeling and perception from what you have got around you? If women, entrepreneurs and managers, we do invest in other women, business women, yes or no? Please, anybody of you that could start the discussion.
I can start the discussion. I would say that if we are putting also the investment in time, in mentoring, in coaching, in human capital, then I would say that 100% of women entrepreneurs invest in other women, because this money is also money, time is also money, and investment in our effort is also investment. So I don't have the data to tell you that percentage is investing in money, that percentage is investing in HR or in other sources. But I can definitely say that women in business are socially responsible, and they do assist other women to get into business. So the investment in total is, I would say, 100%. Or 95%.
You are right, Nivina. You're right. Anybody else wanting to add anything? Yes.
I agree with Lina, absolutely.
Great.
Elizabeth, women are encouraging other women, as you know. And when women see successful role models, they say to themselves that I can do as well. And so they contribute to the economy, I think. I agree with you.
The question was more related to, are you investing your own money in companies, startups or not, of other women? That's the point.
Yeah,
money.
we do.
Yeah,
we do.
That was more or less.
Yes,
So
and also by myself, I investing other women, that we touch all women all together, by hand.
We have an extensive business angel network in SEGE that supports other women through angel investing. For every bid, for every tendering, we have approximately €500,000 that we invest in other women. But apart from the official part, every girl that comes to us as a start-upper that needs some type of support and investment, we try to identify also in private one-to-one if we can assist her further on.
Okay, that was interesting, because if the data says that, if it says at least 66%, it means that we ourselves, we are doing it, because as associations or as individuals, okay? And that we thought, Elena and I, that it was very, very interesting. I pass my word to Elena. Anything you need from our panel, Elena?
Elena, thank you for inviting me to chair. There is a very interesting panel, and thanks also to ASCAME for the organization of the MEDA Week. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you today. And as I know that we are running late, so I will go straight away to the debate that in this case will be mainly focused on some elements that were already mentioned during the ceremony and the keynote speech, but also in the previous panel. That is basically the main challenge, one of the main challenges for women entrepreneurs, meaning access to finance, that is also really closely linked to the new digital economy. When we talk about access to finance, we talk also about digital economy. When we talk about access to finance for women entrepreneurs, means also, access to those finance international institution, bank system that looks for bankable and sustainable projects. And this is also an additional challenge, taking into account that we are talking, especially in the Euro-Mediterranean region, about small and medium enterprises, where the bankability of the projects is in itself an issue. So all these elements should lead to push and to advocate for a more strong partnership between public and private partnership, as Dr. Conde was saying this morning. And when we talk about public and private partnership, we're talking also about investment. And indeed, there is a lot of debate, but also recent mobilization of international organizations, international financing actors, working on having more and more gender lens investment. And the International Finance Corporation has recently launched a specific report on what we could call gender bond in terms of sustainable bonds. So, and on this, I would like to give the floor to our first panel, that is Alexa Roscoe from International Finance Corporation. Take into account that I'm sure you will have a lot to say about this from the perspective of your organization. More particularly, you are a disruptive technology lead at International Finance Corporation Gender and Economic Inclusion Group, where you lead a team advising the private sector on how disruptive technology can open new opportunity for the world. Alexa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna, for the kind introduction. Today, I'm really excited to get us started by sharing some of IFC's newest research, which focuses on women and e-commerce and the first kind of regional perspectives on exactly where and how women are participating in this burgeoning part of the digital economy. Now, I imagine everyone listening today has bought something online. However, I wonder if everyone here is really aware of the true sense of the scope of the global sector that is powering those purchases. Yeah. E-commerce is already a $26 trillion industry. And we know a lot of the future of e-commerce will really be coming from emerging markets. So I want to give us a little bit of a global context today before we kind of dive into a regional discussion. So for instance, we know, in Southeast Asia, sales are expected to triple by 2025. And growth is going to be even higher in Africa, and including the Middle East and North Africa along the Mediterranean, where market value is expected to quadruple between now and 2030. And all of this, of course, is pre-COVID data projections, but I really think, the rush to digitalize in the face of the pandemic has really only accelerated these trends. However, really to date, there's been shockingly little research looking at exactly how e-commerce impacts women entrepreneurs, or conversely, how women business owners can contribute to e-commerce markets. This is really important, because as we've already heard today repeatedly, women entrepreneurs face significant barriers both to entry into the sector and growth once they're there. So for instance, women, small and medium enterprise owners face an almost $1.5 trillion in unmet financing needs. So at the International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank Group, we wanted to know whether the emergence of digital models helps overcome these barriers, or whether actually existing gaps in terms of access to the internet, mobile phones, and other tools actually just means that the shift to e-commerce risks leaving women behind. So to take on that question, excuse me, we partnered with two companies, Jumia in Africa and Lazada in Southeast Asia. And we're able to use take on a really unique and uniquely comprehensive research project. We combined sample surveys of men and women-owned vendors on the platform, and also combined that with the sales data and other kind of interactions with the platform to give you a really strong sense of how men and women were engaging with e-commerce differently. And so this is the first time this has been done. And so it's a really exciting work, and I'm really excited to share it out with you all today. Without further ado, kind of over to the research. One of the key findings that I'm going to keep coming back to here is that we found just between the two regions, almost $300 billion in market value could be added between 2025 and 2030 by closing gender gaps. That's $300 billion, not just to the platform, but really in the hands and the wallets of women entrepreneurs. So a little bit about this. As you can see, the opportunity is a bit bigger in Southeast Asia because the growth there is already higher. It's already a very well-established ecosystem, but in Africa is kind of getting on board a little bit more. But this again is just up to 2030, which means closing these gaps now would continue to accrue in future years, as those markets come online and really kind of come onto their own. And we can capture this value in two ways. First, by bringing more women onto platforms, but also really, of course, making sure the women who are on platforms can succeed and can sell as actively and as profitably as men. So starting with where women are now, right? So remarkably, this is the first time we've actually been able to say definitively whether women are on e-commerce platforms where they are actively. And we did find that women are actively participating in e-commerce really across markets, but probably more so in some countries than others, of course. So kind of the percentage of women range anywhere from about 1/3 of women in Côte d'Ivoire and Indonesia to more than 2/3 of women in markets like the Philippines. And so this is noteworthy in itself because it shows us a little bit about what's happening online and what types of women we need to recruit women versus kind of really help them to succeed. Because it's of course two very different strategies for supporting women entrepreneurs. Also importantly, we really found in this report that e-commerce is helping women to succeed in the digital economy. And a couple of key findings here. First, we did see that both men and women told us that selling online helped grow their businesses. However, more men joined e-commerce to start a new business, whereas women were more likely to be established entrepreneurs who were really entering e-commerce to grow a business. This tells us that companies like Jumia and Lazada are supporting women who are already active entrepreneurs, but who haven't necessarily made the jump into opening online shops. Similarly, we also saw that women in social really tended to get a start more in social commerce, so selling on Facebook, on like Instagram Messenger, and then kind of transitioning into a formal shop. And also women tended to use that as a supplement even when they were selling on a formal platform. Second, we saw that women are using e-commerce to enter sectors where they're traditionally underrepresented. This is important because World Bank research tells us that sector switching is one of the key ways that we can close the profit gaps between men and women entrepreneurs, as women are too often left out of the sectors where profits are highest. So for instance, a woman in Nigeria told us that, when she tried to go to the market to sell electronics, she would get a lot of pushback from other vendors for just being in that space. But of course, when she went online, she could sell to everyone. No one knew that, she was a woman-owned business. Third, we also saw that women valued business support offered by platforms more than men. That's things like training on the digital stuff, but also software support. And that tells us that women are really coming to platforms to close knowledge gaps, and that these are ambitious entrepreneurs that really have growth aspirations. Last but not least, we really saw that flexibility and reaching personal goals were really prioritized by women on platforms more than men. And that's particularly, of course, relevant in the context of COVID, where really high care demands have pushed so many women out of the workplace and caused so many businesses to close. So this isn't exactly a perfect solution to those challenges, but we do see that online platforms and online sales are helping women balance those challenges a little bit more for now. However, when we turn into the question of sales and performance, the story is a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to walk you through that here. First, we began this research prior to COVID, and then of course continued through the first year of the pandemic. So that gave us a little bit of a snapshot of how the pandemic impacted men and women differently. Unfortunately, we did find that while in 2019, there were a number of countries where women's sales total, also known as gross merchandise value in the sector, were really at parity with men or exceeding men's. But COVID really either drastically mitigated that or entirely reversed it. For instance, we saw in Africa that women's sales went down 7%. At the same time, men's sales rose by 7%. And in Southeast Asia, again, women were a bit getting close to parity with men, and now their total average sales are about 85% of men. So at face value, this is quite a pessimistic story, but we prefer to look a little bit more on the bright side and say, actually, look, we know just before the pandemic, women were really succeeding in this sector in many markets. Therefore, that $300 billion, that we talked about earlier, feels isn't just an abstract goal. It feels very reasonable and achievable. And if we support women entrepreneurs to succeed, we can actually kind of get to the point where that is an achievable goal. So how do we get there? I think there are five actions that are particularly where we want to highlight what the private sector can do. Of course, one is on recruiting. And so particularly in markets like Cote d'Ivoire and Indonesia, where women are still the minority of vendors online. And one way particularly to, I think, help women make that transition is to target social commerce platforms like the Facebooks or Metas of the world, where women are already active but haven't necessarily formalized. The second is on training and promotions. And this, there are some specific areas that we called out on things like advertisements, right? So women are not investing in high value, value added products like paid advertising as much as men. So by really helping women entrepreneurs understand how to use those kind of services strategically, we can help them compete in what are often very crowded marketplaces. The third is platform finance, right? So we opened up by talking about financing. Unfortunately, we saw in Africa, for instance, where there was like a Jumia loan product, women are not applying to those products as much as men. However, when they did apply, they were more likely to get approved. This really reflects, a pattern of what we know about women's financial inclusion, but it specifically calls out the fintech sector to really make sure women are aware of the opportunities of, of this space. And I'm happy to go into that in the Q&A. Last two quick points. Fourth, like as I said, sector switching is really important. So recruiting women into the high value sectors is really, we're going to see a lot of that sales gap close. And last but not least, gathering sex disaggregated data. This was quite a lift to kind of even show how many women were participating online, what their success rate was, making sure we know which businesses are women owned and operated. It means that both platforms and other stakeholders can provide that kind of targeted support that's needed to close some of these gaps. So I'll close by sharing the link to, if you want the reports, there's hundreds of pages of more detail here, but also kind of really reminding us what's at stake. That $300 billion between 2025 and 2030 means that, for every year gender gaps remain unaddressed, that's $60 billion that's left on the table, and that, isn't going to women entrepreneurs. I think I'm sure everyone agrees here, that is a gap that should be closed, and that we should continue to work with e-commerce platforms and other stakeholders to make sure that women can really embrace this opportunity and become leaders in the digital economy. So thank you, Anna, and back to you.
Thank you very much for your great presentation. And let me just comment on a couple of things before giving the floor to our next speaker, because what you are mentioned today was also discussed yesterday in the Women Economic Entrepreneurs Forum, where UNIDO presented some similar data on MENA region, specifically on women entrepreneurs. And some of the key findings that you highlighted are quite similar to the one highlighted by UNIDO. More specifically, the study highlighted that basically women are using a lot let's say, digital technology mainly for selling, so for e-commerce. But from the other side, that they are not able or are not skilled to use all the opportunity that digital technology is offering them, especially in terms of access to finance. And this is why one of the recommendations from the UNIDO study for the MENA region was to focus on, from one side, increasing skills on how to use this kind of technology, and from the other side, to raise awareness and to mobilize funds to invest on digital technology, because from one side, the women in the studies answered that they are using a lot the e-commerce platform. From the other side, they don't invest money because of the cost in digital technology and digital platform. So all these elements are, from one side, challenges, but on the other side, also opportunities for both private and public actors that would like to invest on women entrepreneurship. And I would like also now to hear about the specific view from Mrs. Salwa Anna about what can be done on supporting women entrepreneurship in terms of digitalization and investments. And if you have any specific experience to share with us on this. And Mrs. Salwa Awa is the CEO of Final Investment, and she is a management consultant focusing on finance investment. She has more than 20 years of experience in building the capacity of the Egyptian small and medium enterprises, as she has been working also for the World Bank. I give the floor to you.
Hi, how are you all? Thank you for inviting me to speak in this event. I will take you through some of the challenges that we are having for women entrepreneurs regarding the access to finance as appears from my bio, that are playing two roles. The first one is I'm a financial consultant, so I'm a consultant for several businesses that owned by women. And for my business itself, what I'm facing as a challenges in access to finance. Let me take you through some simple. Okay. We can talk at the beginning about some of the findings that we have, that according to some reports and researches, that women economic participation can push up the GDP of the overall, the global GDP. When specifically for Egypt, it will increase the GDP for Egypt by 16%. This is according to McKinsey Institution. If just partially they were enabled, the women were enabled to economically participate. Okay. Also, there is starting a business and growing a business for a woman is so important for overcoming the poverty and carrying the responsibilities of their families and creating a value to the economy. What we saw also that the formal women-owned SMEs represents like 31 to 38% of SMEs in the emerging markets, around 8 to 10 million of SMEs existing in the emerging markets. On the other hand, we can find that the average growth rates for women enterprises, that's significantly lower than the average growth rate for SMEs run by men. Also, the women entrepreneurs have lower access to finance, meaning that we are having lower access to finance. It can affect their ability to grow their businesses and go successfully. If we can see what are the challenges that lead to their lack of access to finance, first, the funds availability and tailored programs for the women entrepreneurs. Also, banks are unable to reach all women-owned businesses, so they can have like informative data base for all these women, so they can attract them to include their businesses in the financial system. Also, they have less favorable terms for the loans they are receiving, higher interest, and they require collaterals for them because the banks look to them at it's not like their first priority to run their businesses, and they can be wound up at any point of time for their families. This also, the important fact is the lack of financial literacy. Majority of women in business, they lack financial literacy, and they are afraid of approaching financial institutions and banks because simply they are confident that they cannot negotiate what they don't know. They are afraid all the time to go ask for a loan and burden the interest and installments, so they avoid going to banks from the beginning, or the financial institutions. Also, banks feel that women-owned businesses are less creditworthy than men. This is because that, as Alexa said, that the majority of businesses are in the services sector, which is a low value added to the economy, which is a majority, they are working from home, like food catering and some of these businesses. So they look at its very small businesses, and this impacts the creditworthiness from the bank point of view. As we went, several parties have taken some initiatives to support the access to finance for women entrepreneurs. I'm applying here on Egypt for some facts about this. For instance, the multilateral agreements and donors such as the EBRD, they have the Women in Business Fund. that is directed to women-owned businesses, and at least 50% of the ownership, and they give it to them in the form of supporting financial advisory services that they cannot afford to pay. Also, they loaned RIFI microfinance enterprise in Egypt, like EGP, 80 million to finance women in business, and to offer new products that match the women entrepreneurs. On the other hand, there is the French Agency for Development, which is a French public institution, also secured a loan for the Egyptian micro companies, aiming to promote women entrepreneurs in Egypt. So if we can look what they can do, they at the beginning, as we addressing the challenges they are having, we should start by the policymakers to recognize and focus on how to solve these challenges. For instance, they need to create the enabling environment to include the gender dimension in the financial inclusion, and also to develop legal and regulatory environment framework. So, for instance, if we as it's valid in the developed countries, like the crowdfunding as a way of securing finance to women entrepreneurs, we still can't apply this here in Egypt because we don't have the legal framework to work to regulate this funds entering to the economy. Also, they have to build the capabilities and the capacity of the financial institutions to better deal with women entrepreneurs. For instance, if there is a barrier with the woman to go to the bank, and especially if the male officer in front of her, and she knows that she doesn't have this kind of financial literacy, so they can, for instance, like hire specialized women that are stronger in finance, and they can deal with these women entrepreneurs to make them understand what is the contract about, and what they have to do, and what they have to maintain in order to receive this finance. Also, we need some more government support in the mechanism with preferable terms. We had here in Egypt, and it was the first time to have this, honestly, that we have an initiative of 5% interest, which is very low to Egyptian economy, given to women-led businesses with longer terms. So this was a great initiative, and a lot of women entrepreneurs have benefited from this one. Also, we need to see what was the most successful models to apply in this area, and support it with the regulatory frame needed to push the women entrepreneurs with the finance needed to their businesses. Okay, for the banks, they can make specialized branches to deal with women entrepreneurs, for instance. I know it might be hard at the beginning, but it will encourage more women to go and deal freely and negotiate their terms of contracts, and hear about the products available to them. Also understand as I said, the challenges they have in the financial discussions. Digital application for such loans was found that it increased the participation of women in applying for finance, because simply they don't go to banks. Of course, it's affected everyone, but for women specifically, because this is one of the challenges they have. And also, banks need to think about more out of the box tools to credit check for women, such as looking at their payments for the mobile, for the internet, or not necessary to look always for collaterals, which most of the time are not available to them. I believe that the angel investors with funds available specified for women entrepreneurs, having great opportunity. And we had the first one was initiated in Egypt is T-Angels, which it was with the Women Entrepreneurs Network, with the collaboration with the USAID and UNDP and the Technology Innovation Center. And this is the first one focused on creating more women investors, which will invest and mentor other women entrepreneurs. So they are covering the part of the finance and also building the capacity of women entrepreneurs. Venture capitalists, we can have, and as I said before, that we need a regulatory framework to these tools, but it could be global global funds by women entrepreneurs themselves. They can return and back other women by providing or investing in their businesses. But as I mentioned here, that there is a difference between the stage that we go for angel investor on the venture capitalists, because venture capitalists usually look for more profitable and more expanding businesses. As I said, crowdfunding had a great opportunity. What we expect that fintech has a significant role to play to make the finance available for women entrepreneurs. This will be a step forward to increase the finance available to them and increase their business growth, and eventually it will affect the economy at whole. I take it quickly because I know the time is.
Thank you very much. No, it was really interesting, and I would say that the challenges that you highlighted in your presentation are absolutely applicable to the full region. I would just mention a couple of things, because yesterday, during the Women Economic Entrepreneurship Forum organized by OECD, we had the pleasure to listen the Egyptian Minister for Planning and Economic Development, and she mentioned the Egyptian government commitment to support the digitalization of women entrepreneurship. She mentioned two programs specifically, the She for Digital Future, that is a capacity building program, and also the pilot project launched by the Ministry of International Cooperation with the World Bank called Closing Gender Gap Accelerators. Where one of the 10 pillars is focused on digitalization and women entrepreneurship. So just to confirm that from one side, you are right that the legal framework must be changed, but also mobilizing funds and initiatives for the public sector is essential to cooperate with, to create what you call enabling the right environment, allowing women entrepreneurs to access to finance. Thanks again for your intervention. And I would like to close the panel by giving the floor to Mrs. Nassima Berhaya. I hope I pronounced well your name, I'm sorry. She comes from, let's say, a different perspective, a different experience, because she created his, on initiative. She co-founder of Magma Business Accelerators, and she also launched My Way initiative program. So we would like also to hear from you your experience on how to support women entrepreneurship in terms also digital development. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. I share my screen. I don't know if it's visible, and I switch in French. Okay, so yes, My Way, it's an incubator program. Alors, on accompagne les femmes entrepreneurs et de l'aider jusqu'à la création.
Women entrepreneurs, so that support them all the way through their creation of their business. We already have 10 years of experience in this field in several countries. We have organized and launched many programs and challenges, and this is where we identified many needs of these women. They need support, coaching, mentoring, and there are in fact many programs that have been applied in Algeria, but it is a lot more importing programs rather than innovating programs for the Algerian ecosystem. And so this is why we launched My Way Incubator. So the roadmap starts with the idea all the way to the business creation, and also focuses extensively on personal development, especially the development of soft skills. There are some assets that we need to develop and have as entrepreneurs, and even more so for women. They need to be convinced, they need to be encouraged to convince their surroundings and so the program lasts between 6 to 9 months, and it ends with the creation of the business creation. And in fact, there are many issues with the starting of the actual business, with a lot of laws that change. There are licenses. There are many ministries and different very challenging administrative process, and actually men and women entrepreneurs are lost in this whole bureaucratic red tape. We also provide expertise and support. So in fact, this network helps women to develop as well. And then there's business opportunities with B2B events and with professional networking events, whether it is to find partners, customers. We also extensively discussed investing in women entrepreneurs, and sometimes they simply need to give them they simply need a plan. They need to be given an opportunity. They do have services to provide, so they simply need to be given an opportunity. And so this is a financing and support, not to mention the support and coaching. So as I mentioned, there's also the skills development, the business skills and coaching and mentoring that should not be neglected. So to encourage women to tap into this field and to become entrepreneurs, we started My Way for Women. It's a mentorship and sponsorship program, and so in fact it covers all sorts of trainings, access to incubation, and all of the expenditures. So I mean, that are covered by all of the seed funds, and so to create their company, for example, the digital marketing, admin support, all of the communications materials, participation in trade fairs. So all of these expenditures that contribute to the starting of the company and to help them launch their business. So we launched a My Way platform, and so in fact we are working with other incubators in other countries. And so when we talk about startups, it's important to mention scalability and see how we can grow and develop. And we have collaborated with other incubators in different countries, and this will help to export these services. So first of all, to develop in one's country, I mean, already it's difficult in Algeria, but if, for example, there's a market in a different country, in a different Arab, African, Mediterranean country, which is not easy, but when we have this partnership with other incubators, they will facilitate access to this entrepreneur, to be able to tap into different markets. And sometimes we even find startups that are involved in the same sector, they provide the same services, and they can even work together and develop partnerships. And this will ensure sustainability and ensure the scalability, whether it is within their country or even to go global. And in this sense, I invite all organizations to other incubators that work along the same lines and that share these views to join us. And I'm sure that this will be extremely beneficial for all of the startups that are part of these incubators. So in a nutshell, when we spoke about the digital marketing, we discussed a few statistics, we discussed access to the internet and access to social networks. And so the Algerian population is composed of 44 million people, and so this is a very young population, and with more than 65% of the population that's aged under 18. 18 and above, excuse me, and we can see that as far as the connections, we have more than 44 million people that are connected, 46 million that are so more than 106 million people that have SIM cards to be connected. And then there's also social networks. There are many women that are online that go online to sell their products and services, but it is not through websites or through marketplaces, but rather on groups from social networks, and particularly Facebook. So recently we saw that there were quite a few cities and whatnot. So people, for example, women create an internal group and they sell their products on these groups. So for example, we see, for example, communities of 5,000 to 6,000 households, and so there are women that do business in their own city or town. And so if we were to talk about e-commerce, e-payments, I mean, this e-payment is actually very recent in Algeria. It's not more the technical side, but it's rather the legal part which has delayed this payment process. And so e-payment is now launched, and we see more and more websites that are starting, and so different merchants that are being certified, and there are companies that support other companies in getting their certifications. We ourselves have just gotten certifications, and we're supporting the women in launching their online business. And so this doesn't only depend on products that need to be marketed online. So it's important to note that there's the whole branding and design and image that brand image that comes into play. That's actually the most important part that takes the most time to set up, because we can have the best product, but if in terms of image design and branding it's not optimal, I mean, going online won't necessarily translate into sales. And so this is why we also support women through workshops, and we even provide technical support. As far as logistics goes, well, for the delivery, at first it was extremely challenging. So Algeria is a huge country, that's 2 million square kilometers. It's very difficult to distribute products throughout the entire country. But through companies that have started, I mean, they have started out in the sector, even startups, and there are also some delivery transport companies that have been specialized in this sector. Well, tend to focus on e-commerce, and so, in fact, with the pandemic and COVID, this has accelerated this process of going online and to accept this process of home deliveries. And with the new government and the new Ministry of Startups, there are laws that are updated almost every month. And I'm sure that this will continue to accelerate this process. Selwa mentioned crowdfunding, and this is something that this is an update that we're eagerly awaiting. This is something that will definitely help resolving financing issues for women, because crowdfunding will definitely give a huge boost to startups, and so for financing for both women and men. Thank you, Anna. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks a lot for
Thank you, Nassima.
And I would say that listening that your activity is supporting on the ground with these kind of platforms, support the mechanism, mentoring, coaching. It's quite in line with what the UFM is planning to do in cooperation with UNIDO, because we are planning to launch on the MENA region under the UNIDO program for promoting the sustainable inclusion of women in industrial development next year, to give the opportunity to women entrepreneurs and startup to benefit from an online incubation program. So we will be more than happy to be in touch with you about this opportunity, because I mean, networking among incubator program is a key element to scale up and make the initiative more sustainable. I would like to thank you all the speakers. It was really interesting, and hopefully we will have more and further opportunity to cooperate and to meet physically in, let's say, next year. Thank you again.